Starfield is rapidly approaching 3 months on the market since launch, and currently it has a bit of a perception problem. Past Bethesda titles, comparisons, expectations, even communications, it's all factoring into this wild brew of a space game that needs to kick it into high gear or risk forever being lost to obscurity. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. It's LtBuzzLitebeer, and even though I like Starfield and have continued to play it, we are currently in slow mode when it comes to improvements to the game, which will hopefully change soon as we just got some news concerning the future of Starfield. Thanks again for your awesome levels of support for my Starfield uploads. Remember to hit subscribe and ring the notifications bell to receive my latest upload alerts. Likes, comments, shares are of course greatly appreciated. And let's get into all the latest with Starfield. Yesterday, Bethesda fired off what felt like a bit of a celebration slash, hey, the future looks bright tweet showing off some pretty gaudy numbers. Almost 22.3 million days played, 26 million hours building ships, which I can totally relate to, 1.9 billion planets visited, and 4.5 million outpost settlers, along with a player count of 13 million players. Again, huge stats being displayed from Bethesda's latest release, and these were to be expected considering the sales numbers for the game and the fact that it was on Xbox Game Pass day one. What really stands out, at least to me, are two items that you have to read into just a bit based on the infographic, because these stats show both strengths and weaknesses found within the game. Now, the first is 4.5 million outpost settlers, which when compared to the 13 million players, comes to roughly just 1/3 of them. And so when we break this down to basic terms, it means very few players are actually taking the time to interact with the outpost builder system. So the question becomes, why? Well, I mean, it could boil down to one of a million reasons. It is time consuming. Players find it confusing. It has no real benefit or is not tied to any requirements for the game. I mean, overall, and this is me just speaking here as someone that has half a dozen of these outposts fully set up, once they're complete and up and running, there's basically not a lot to do when you're there. They are completely disconnected from the core gameplay loop, almost as an afterthought, which is in direct contrast to, say, something like shipbuilding, which clearly at 26 million hours spent, players are really enjoying that aspect of the game. 40 hours average playtime per player is another stat that I was actually really shocked to see. Starfield's been out now, what, approaching 3 months? And I know that everyone's available playtime differs here, but if someone told me that a Bethesda RPG nearly 3 months after launch would be at 40 hours average playtime per player, I wouldn't believe them. Further stats are available to view over at Bethesda.net, and by the way, link in the video description to this one. Most dangerous faction, favorite meals, by the way, I still don't consume any food in this game. Favorite weapon, the combat tech Beowulf. 5.1 million crossings of the Unity, and then another very interesting stat here, listen to this, 1.6 million Starborn players out of 13 million total players. And that feels like an absurdly low percentage of players that are engaging with Starfield's NG+ system. But I've discussed the deficiencies with this implementation in the past. No skill resets, no trait selections. You lose everything, like your ships, weapons, armor. I mean, there's so few advantages to actually using it. And just like outpost building, it has turned into a system of the game that very few players are interested in it. Within this article, Bethesda also dropped quite a few indications as to what to expect in the near future for Starfield, although I know that there were more than a few players out there that didn't like the wording of this one. Starfield End of the Year Update, as it felt quite a bit disingenuous, especially the use of the word update when it was entirely an announcement. But Bethesda seems to be coming around and listening and attempting to communicate on a more frequent basis, and I think we are all glad to see that they turned off that ChatGPT informational response system to criticisms over on Steam. Players should expect updates roughly every 6 weeks starting in February 2024, including the ability to access city maps while exploring major cities. All right, full stop. let me ask you a serious question. How many of you knew that there was an entire lower level to New Atlantis? It's true. It's called the Well. And I was blown away a few weeks ago when I was discussing the area with another Starfield player, and they literally had no idea what I was talking about. And I wonder how many players who didn't know about it and just heard me speak about it will now start searching for the entrance. But it goes to the point of city maps and how a game this large and long in development will, at the time they install it, have gone 5 months without a functional city map. I was truly hoping that Bethesda would have bumped up official mod support, especially for Xbox, and launched the creation kit prior to the winter holidays. But again, we get confirmation here that it is coming early 2024. Will modders be able to save the game? That's a point of contention that has been widely debated throughout the Starfield and greater Bethesda community. Now, since I actually play on Steam PC, Vortex and the mods I've installed have greatly altered and enhanced my Starfield experience. Again, at least for me, I've got things like faster docking, much better textures, and of course the studio installed implementation of DLSS, which have all worked wonders on my game, but now it's down to the core needs. One of which is being hinted at in this latest announcement: new ways to travel. Now, both travel and exploration have been focal points as areas of the Starfield experience that just don't function well. New ways to travel is an extremely vague statement, and I've speculated on it in the past, but this is a multi-story issue involving not only space, but planet-side travel as well. Let me know what you think Bethesda has cooked up for this new travel mechanic. Sound off in the comment section below. Bethesda also takes the time to mention Shattered Space, their first major expansion for Starfield coming next year, which, just based on this exact wording, hints that there will be more DLC to follow. And then we have a very interesting addition to this article: new gameplay difficulty settings, far beyond just cranking up the overall difficulty so everything just becomes tankier. Now, apparently, items like carry capacity, cargo access distance, ship damage, vendor credits, afflictions, and a new survival mechanic will all be customizable through the menu settings. And just looking over this selection of items, these look juicy. Could this hint towards a hardcore mode akin to what we saw in Fallout 4? I mean, vendor credits, afflictions, and survival mechanics are all hot buttons for me, and this is where Bethesda could show off some more of that increased commitment to communication and drop us more details on all of this, because these are the type of changes we need in the game. And let's finish up today with that perception problem I mentioned between Starfield and Bethesda versus the player base, because Steam is just one slice of the overall picture. Of course, Steam reviews are mixed and have been for some time, and that's with over 85,000 posted reviews. Of course, you've got the typical non-constructive, trollish posts, but then there are quite a few logical listings of everything that has been found lacking in the game. I personally like the game. I mean, I think that is evident, but I can also point to glaring weaknesses that the team needs to devote the majority of time to. Bethesda has been under fire for Starfield. Old engine, huge game, lack of content, loading screens. I mean, I could go on. And now we arrive at a recent post made by Bethesda dev Emil Pagliarulo over on Twitter. Spread over 15 successive posts, Pagliarulo just kind of lets it all fly. Not that he hasn't in the past, but this wall of text basically calls out how difficult it is to make games, the overall development process, how many individuals are involved, and overall expectations, and in some ways, it calls out those that have criticized the decisions made in the development of the game. And of course, over on Twitter, this set off a volley of responses. I mean, here's one. Players don't need to understand the process to come to the conclusion that your game wasn't good, you're out of touch, and so on, etc., etc. Now, some of these just got downright brutal, but it does raise the question of the perception issue with Starfield. Some took Pagliarulo's comments almost in the direction of, you players are out of touch, Starfield is awesome, and you don't know how good you've got it. Others saw this wall of text as someone that was clearly frustrated and trying to explain the nuance of studio life. Whatever the motivation that was behind these tweets, it did not resonate well with the player base. It was again interpreted as another one of these Steam-type responses, almost as an explanation of the game to help those understand what it took to make it, and on many levels, it just totally backfired. Hence this perception problem. As a whole, players aren't interested in being told that Starfield is a great game and you don't like it because you don't understand it. And between those disconnected and past irresponsible Steam review comments and now this recent statement from Pagliarulo, it is just totally setting the wrong tone. At this point, it's probably best to push the fixes and changes into high gear, keep improving the game, and keep the we know best vibes out of the studio player discourse. But as always, I'm interested to hear your thoughts on all of it. Leave me some feedback and let's talk it all out. Remember to hit subscribe and ring the notifications bell to receive my latest upload alerts. Likes, comments, shares are greatly appreciated. All my socials can be found in the video description below. Shout out to the over 187,000 of you that have stuck with me and hit subscribe, and a special thanks goes out to my Patreon supporters. Until the next one, this is LtBuzzLitebeer signing off.